In early 2026, Venezuela returned to the headlines. Military operations, covert pressure, sanctions tightening, oil fields in play, maps lighting up with speculation about who would win and who would lose. But if you're only watching the soldiers, you're missing the story. Because the real defeat in Venezuela didn't happen this year. It happened years ago in a quiet building most people never think about, the central bank. Venezuela didn't just suffer regime change or geopolitical pressure, it suffered something far more devastating, a total collapse of its ledger, a complete evaporation of monetary trust. This is a country sitting on more oil than Saudi Arabia, the richest dirt on earth, and yet it ended up with a currency so worthless that people used banknotes as bookmarks, wallpaper, even toilet paper. How does that happen? How does unimaginable resource wealth turn into a place where you're a billionaire in the morning and can't afford eggs by lunch? To understand Venezuela and why your own money might be more fragile than you think, we need to talk about three things: the petrodollar, the psychology of fiat currency, and what happens when trust breaks. The illusion of oil wealth. For decades, Venezuela looked invincible. In the 1970s, it was the wealthiest nation in South America. Oil money poured in, infrastructure expanded. Caracas felt like a modern marvel. The middle class grew. Venezuela wasn't just rich, it felt permanent. But underneath, the entire system rested on a single foundation: oil exports priced in US dollars. Here's why that mattered. In the petrodollar system, oil isn't just a commodity, it's a global financial anchor. Because oil trades in dollars, any country selling oil earns the world's reserve currency. And earning dollars means access to imports, to debt markets, to international trust. For years, the Venezuelan bolivar had weight because oil brought in hard currency. Dollars flowed in, the ledger balanced, debts were paid, confidence held. But here's the dangerous part about fiat currency. Fiat currency isn't backed by gold or oil or anything you can touch. It's backed by two things: trust in the issuer and external demand for the currency itself. In Venezuela's case, that demand lived and died with oil exports, and when that flow stopped, the entire belief system began to crack. When the dollars disappeared. Over time, a perfect storm hit. Collapsing oil production, falling global prices, internal mismanagement, and external pressure through sanctions and export restrictions. The oil was still in the ground, but the dollars stopped coming. Without hard currency, Venezuela couldn't import food, medicine, or industrial parts. The ledger stopped balancing. And here's where governments face a choice. They can accept reality and restructure, or they can print. Venezuela printed. When a central bank can't earn value through trade or productivity, it tries to manufacture value through the printing press. New bolivars flooded the system, but nobody wanted them. Not citizens, not foreign buyers, not markets. There was no external demand, no underlying trust, just more paper chasing the same shrinking pool of goods. Imagine playing musical chairs, but instead of removing chairs, the government keeps adding chairs nobody wants to sit in. That's hyperinflation. And it doesn't feel like economics, it feels like reality breaking. The psychology of collapse. Currency collapse isn't just about numbers on a screen, it's deeply, viscerally psychological. It starts with unease, prices changing weekly, then daily, then between morning and afternoon. Money becomes a melting ice cube. And once people realize that holding cash guarantees loss, behavior changes instantly. Saving stops, spending accelerates, not on luxuries, on anything tangible. Rice, batteries, soap, spare parts, anything that might hold value longer than the currency itself. In Venezuela, the black market didn't become an alternative, it became the only economy that mattered. The official exchange rate was fiction, the street price was truth. The government's ledger was a fantasy. Reality was written in the price of bread. And this is the core lesson. A nation can be resource-rich and monetarily destroyed. Because if your currency is isolated, if it's trapped in a closed loop with no external demand, the moment trust breaks, the people lose everything. This is the moment every fiat system fears. When confidence doesn't fade, it snaps. The mechanics of trust. Fiat systems are stable only when they stay connected to global networks, trade flows, reserve access, political credibility, military assurance. Break those connections and the system doesn't bend, it shatters. As Venezuela became isolated, its currency was effectively unplugged. No access to dollars, no access to trust, no path to recovery. And once trust dies, there's no amount of printing that can revive it. You can't print belief. The reset. As geopolitical interest returns in 2026, you'll hear phrases like restoring oil production and reintegrating export capacity. This isn't just about energy. It's about reconnecting Venezuela to the global monetary system. Restoring dollar flows means rebuilding access, repairing credibility, and rewriting the ledger. But here's what won't be mentioned. The people who lived through hyperinflation learned something permanent. They learned that a government-controlled fiat system is a single point of failure. And once you've watched your life savings evaporate in real time, that trust never fully returns. The unexpected exit. For the first time in history, people trapped inside a failing fiat system had another option. Not a foreign currency controlled by another government, not a corporate substitute, not a political promise, a decentralized ledger. A system that didn't care about sanctions or borders or regime change. A system with transparent rules, predictable issuance, and no central authority with the power to rewrite the code when reality became uncomfortable. It wasn't perfect. It was volatile, unfamiliar, uncomfortable. But it had one property fiat currencies don't. It couldn't be retroactively changed by decree. In the ruins of the Bolivar, digital sovereignty took root. Not because it was trendy, but because when institutional trust dies, people seek systems that don't require trust at all. Why this matters to you. It's easy to see Venezuela as an outlier, a foreign tragedy, a cautionary tale that happens over there. But the mechanics that destroyed the Bolivar aren't unique. Every fiat system depends on the same fragile pillars: confidence, connectivity, and constraint. Break any one and instability follows. We see familiar patterns globally: rising debt levels, currency systems weaponized through sanctions, monetary expansion used to patch structural problems. Venezuela just reached the endpoint faster. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the most resource-rich nation on Earth watched its ledger collapse in a decade, what makes any other fiat system immune? What wealth really means. The tragedy of Venezuela is a warning, but it's also a blueprint. Real wealth isn't just assets or income, it's optionality, it's redundancy, it's having value stored outside a single point of failure. Financial resilience means not tying your entire life to a single centralized ledger, one institution, one currency, one authority that can rewrite the rules without asking. It's the difference between being a passenger on a sinking ship and having access to your own lifeboat. The final lesson. As Venezuela's story unfolds in 2026, don't just watch the headlines, watch the mechanics underneath. Watch how fiat value depends on geopolitics, on trust, on systems you don't control. Because money is a social contract, and history shows that social contracts can be rewritten quickly, quietly, and without your consent. The petrodollar era taught us that money is backed by power. The emerging era is teaching us that money can be backed by mathematics, and in that shift, there's genuine hope. Because while governments can seize assets, freeze accounts, or rewrite ledgers, no institution can confiscate a system that exists everywhere and belongs to no one. This is the story of Venezuela, a story of oil, fiat collapse, and the day a currency died. But more than that, it's a story about responsibility. Because your wealth is your responsibility. Don't leave it trapped inside a system that views you as just another entry in a book that can be rewritten overnight. The future is coming fast, Make sure you're on the right side of the ledger. If this deep dive into the collapse of trust opened your eyes, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on the future of money. And if you want to understand how the system traps you long before a total collapse, click here to watch our previous video on the mechanics of the credit card trap.